Hugh Halter.
Do we hug? What do we do?
Well, yeah, hold on. I got to get this mic out of the way then we can hug. All right. All right, here we go.
Here,
all right. Good to see you, man. Yeah, all right.
It's great. Here we go.
Let's go get these stools out here.
You have no idea how much history Jeff and I have. Have you figured this out? He's a very fun guy. We've had some fun. I don't know if we ever did anything to help the cause of Jesus, but we had fun.
We did. We did a couple things, yeah. So anyway, Hugh Halter, who in the world are you anyway?
Well,
you know, your hair's falling out. You're kind of falling apart.
Do you have any old pictures of when I had hair?
I do have pictures of that. I didn't put those up.
Yeah. You're still holding solid.
I'm doing okay, yeah.
You got other problems, but whatever. Well, good morning. I hail from Alton, Illinois right now, so took a drive up yesterday. I don't really know who I am. I was a house painter, grew up in Portland, Oregon, and was heading off to, I think, traditional ministry, and ended up finding a lady named Cheryl, and she had a 5-year-old son named Ryan, and I married her, adopted Ryan. He had really severe epilepsy. I was having about 20 grand mal seizures every day, so about every hour, and it pulled me out of seminary, it pulled me out of everything, had to go back to painting houses, but we just started to, back in those days, my wife just said, well, babe, we can at least open up our front door, just figure out how to let our life in the neighborhood kind of be something, and we just started to learn how to be missionaries right where we were at in Portland, Oregon, and it eventually turned into a new church, more inner city Portland, and then we went off to Denver, Colorado to do kind of the same thing, more intentional, try to actually create a missions movement right here in the U.S., teaching people how to live as missionaries in their neighborhoods, and it actually went pretty well. We wrote a book that ended up sort of getting me traveling all around the world, teaching people, just normal people, house painters, plumbers, teachers, that we are all called and sent by God, and that it's actually doable. You can do it. It doesn't matter the hand that you've been dealt. It can be a severe disability. It can be anything. But we all can learn how to actually walk across the street. Don't always have to go across the waters to Africa. You can all learn how to just live life. And so we created a kind of a missionary training network in Denver, Colorado. And along the way, my son kept, struggling, had a brain surgery, and he was not supposed to probably have lived past 5 or 6, and he just kept going. And then we found an assisted living center in Alton. So have many of you ever been to Denver? We weren't looking to leave and come to Alton. Alton's just right over the Mississippi River from St. Louis area, but we found an assisted living center for Ryan there. And so when he was mid-20s, we put him out there, and just the story began to happen from that moment.
Yeah. So didn't your wife get involved in this now? You were walking down the street?
Well, it was actually her fault.
It was her fault. I knew it.
We were at a little Italian bar, and we would fly in to see Ryan about every quarter, about 4 or 5 times a year. And each time we would go into, how many of you ever been down to Alton? It's kind of like North County, St. Louis. It's we just started to be kind of taken by the poverty of the town. It used to have about 100,000 people. It was down to about 30,000. And 2/3 of the commercial spaces were boarded up. Quite a bit of the housing, found out later, 80% of the housing was slumlord owned. Average family income in Alton still is right around $20,000. So it's a very, very poor area. Half black, half white context, everybody poor. Type of thing. So we would fly into Alton, and we would pull house flyers, and we would go, man, there's something that isn't what it used to be. Very beautiful real estate, but you could just tell something had happened. And probably on the 10th, 11th time in, my wife, we were coming out of this bar, and she just said, hey, why don't we just move here and see if we can do something to help the town? And we got in a bit of a skirmish on the sidewalk. And I told her, hey, we'll just go back, we'll pray about it, and so she did.
She prayed, you didn't pray.
She actually, the very first morning we were back in Denver, she goes, hey, so can we talk about Alton? And I said, sure, what do you want to talk about? She's like, well, I'm serious, I think we should go there. And I reminded her that this was the first year of our lives together as a married couple that we didn't have his disability, that it was time to take a breather, come off of the front line, enjoy a little break. We'd bought a little 4-acre horse ranch and bought Cheryl some horses that were important to her.
You're doing great.
I was just reminding her, we did all this for you to relax and chill. And she goes, I know, but what if God wants us to go? And she said, are you even praying about it? And there is a fib. There's what we call a Rahab fib. It's in the Bible, where you don't have to always tell the truth. Somehow, so I did a little Rahab fib, and I said, yeah, I have been praying about it. And she said, well, what's Jesus? In our family, we always talked about what Jesus was saying. We didn't say, what's Christianity teach us to do, or what's our religion? It was always like, what is Jesus saying to us? And so she said, what's he saying to you? And of course, I hadn't been talking to him about it, so I had to make up some more stuff. And I said, well, I don't think he wants us to go, I think. And she put her hands together. She goes, wow, it's like we have like 2 Jesuses in our house. They're fighting again. And so long story short.
But didn't she call a family meeting now?
Well, I called the family meeting.
You called
because I thought for sure my adult daughters who were just graduating college would side with their father.
Of course.
Because they loved Colorado. And they said, McKenna goes, hey, Dad, we know you're tired, but I bet you got one more in you. And then my oldest daughter, she said, Dad, let's go. Let's go as a family. And so all 3 of, the 2 daughters, the brand new husbands, they're Jesus won. And I went kicking and screaming to Alton, and oldest daughter said, Dad, put me on the roughest corner you can find. And so we found a little crack house for $12,000, and we renovated that, and we put Allie and Matthew on that. And then we bought my other daughter. She had one more year of college, so we bought another house for her about 4 blocks from that. And then Cheryl and I bought a house. We were all right downtown Alton, didn't know what to do. We just felt like we were supposed to do something to help the town. And about 6 months in, a gentleman who I had one lunch with, he called me. He said, hey, Hugh, are you busy today? I said, no, John, I don't actually have a life here. And he goes, let me show you some buildings that I own around town. So I thought he was taking me on a little bit of a history tour. And he pulled up in front of a federal post office that had been boarded up for about 60 years. Most of the town had been boarded up about the same time. And he said, what do you think about this building? I said, well, it looks pretty cool. It looks like it would have been like the crown jewel of downtown. You got a picture? Oh, yeah. Yes, there you go. So, but all the windows were covered, and there was no nice green door, and he just said, so you like it? I said, well, yeah, it looks great. He says, well, I bought it about 1.5 years ago, and he said, I feel like I'm supposed to give it to you. And then he said this, he goes, I think you're gonna know what to do to help our town get kind of moving. Same thing that my wife had said. So at that point, I realized game was on, and we got the family walking through there, and my youngest daughter said, because we didn't know what we were there for. We just knew that God had asked us to come to Alton. And my youngest daughter said, Dad, let's just create the living room for our city. Because there's no, if you go downtown Alton, there was no daytime space. There was no coffee. Can you imagine no coffee shop? Like, how much worse could it get? You know? And so we thought about, how do we just bring people together? And we had no other plans outside. We decided, let's do something to encourage the town. And so we did. We started Post Commons, put a really nice third wave coffee shop in. Then people started to come in, and it was such a large space. People started to ask us if we could host their weddings, so we became the premier event space in the city. And then we noticed that a lot of people came in, because again, there was no place else to go. And people would just work out of our space. And so we became kind of this big co-working space. And And we didn't charge people. We just said, we're just glad you're here, just like whatever. So there's still, every day, there's probably 20, 30 regulars that just do their jobs out of our space. And then people started to come in, and they would say stuff like, they would go, hey, we heard that you help people start things here. And we had never said any of that, but we were like, well, yeah, we do. And I remember a young gal that was, she was 5 years clean off her meth addiction. And we heard about her. At that time, we had really bad pastries. And I was out searching for good pastries. I found her at a little market. And I asked her what she wanted to do. And she said, I'd love to have my own brick and mortar bakery someday. And I said, well, what do you need? And she said, I just need a commercial kitchen to be legal so I can bake out of the kitchen. So I said, well, we got one of those. And I said, you can use it every day after 2 o'clock. And so it was probably a year later, she had her own brick and mortar, and I'm driving down the streets of Alton listening to the local radio station, and they're interviewing this woman. And they said, hey, tell us how you went from meth addiction to having your own bakery. And she said, well, it was the people up at the Post, and she named me, and she said, those folks just became my family, and they gave us everything we needed to actually become what we've always wanted to be. And she goes, I just owe it all to them. And so more people started to come to us. We started to build out other businesses. We're about 15 small businesses right now out of the Post. We're about to add a pizza joint because we have no pizza.
That's right.
In our town. And basically, we try to find anything that our town doesn't have.
Well, I noticed when I was there, the YMCA's boarded up. So
yeah, it's boarded up.
You can't go there. So now, haven't you started a basketball thing?
Well, we found out it wasn't just that. There was no athletic programs for the youth in our town. 75% of our teenagers, middle school and high school, are without fathers. So yeah, we started to go, okay, let's build out some benevolent businesses, but let's also find out the things that are broken in our city, and let's just try to do something. So we started a travel basketball league for middle school boys. We don't have a lot of folks, but we have quite a few that live on the streets, and so we realized that they're going to die in the wintertime, and so we helped set up a warming center. So we do benevolent business. We do justice, what we call justice works, anything that just is about God's ways breaking into our city. And then we have very intentional homes in neighborhoods, specifically in the rougher parts of our town, which is a good chunk of the town. But we buy up houses, we renovate them. That's something that I love to do, the old house painting life. I wonder why God made me do that all those years.
Yeah,
and now we have quite a few homes around our city where people literally said, we're just going to live there. And they become essentially the center for those neighborhoods.
Yeah, so we visited one of those homes, and you had built a playground kind of in the backyard of this home. It was in this rough neighborhood, and it's kind of the hub where all the kids know they can come and be safe and play.
Yep.
And this family lives there, and they are...
Yeah. And in fact, the guy that gave me the post gave us that house because he said, I love what you guys did here. Could you use a house? And so it was a big 5,000 square foot house right on Central Avenue, and it's a terrible part of our city. And this one family has anchored that city, or that part of the city. I've asked leaders both on the black side and the white side, tell us what you've heard about the McCall family. And one African American leader said, oh, they've like changed this whole area. It's just one family living in their house. If you go to their home, almost any meal, there's going to be 5, 10, sometimes 30 kids. During COVID, those kids really didn't want to be in their own homes, so Taylor and Lindsay were actually running a small little school out of their house for the kids just to kind of make it through the COVID. So, it sounds unique or weird, but it's just, I just always pictured it as what we do, like what we do. So there's a passage that is sort of the anchor passage.
Yeah.
It says, where the righteous prosper, the city rejoices. And we don't think it was for the weird people. We think it's maybe for all of us. Like wherever you put a certain type of a Christian, clearly not all Christians get involved in things, but the word righteous, it's actually a type of Christian that wherever you drop them, they bring justice and mercy and goodness. They kind of lift the faces of the people around them. And it's just something I always tell people, like what we did, we were just normal people. Any of us could do that. If God, I used to walk around in Alton before we got the building, and I would literally just ask the Lord, I'd say, I'm stuck here now, you got me. But I'd say, look, we'll do whatever you want us to do. I don't care what it is. But I said, I don't want to just try things. So I would always ask the Lord in the morning, I'd say, would you just throw some bread on the trail? I don't need a whole bunch. It's like the story of manna. Just give me something for the day so I know what to do today. And then the building has given us a big chunk of bread. But almost everything that was built out, my son eventually passed away about 3 years ago. And my wife struggled, and she was begging the Lord to put bread on the trail for her. She's like, I don't know why I'm here still, because her job was always to keep Ryan alive. And then she comes home one day and she's like, okay, I got the bread. And so she started an equine therapy. So now part of our what we call a kingdom ecosystem is now an 80-acre farm that I didn't know how to do that stuff either.
No.
I didn't know coffee. I didn't know this cow and horse thing.
Right. Is this a church? What is this? Is this a church? Is this some sort of weird thing going on?
Well, think of it this way. That's a great question, because people come in and they'll hear about what we're doing, and they know that we're Jesus people, and they'll go, do you go to church? And I go, well, let's think about that. God really has one church in the world. He just has one church, okay? And we meet in different things. We have different names and we have different labels. But if God really only has one people that are to do his work in the world, then if you find a handful of friends, we've got about 50 people in our network right now, but we get together every Tuesday at the post and we just pray and we ask for God to guide us as a community, not just in our personal lives, but in our enterprise. And if I can find a handful of friends that I desperately pray with every week, and we see each other almost every day, and we do the works that God seems to be giving us to do, and we actually collect all of our money together. We have a shared purse in the way that we do our economy. So if we make a little money in the coffee shop, which isn't very often, then we can put $15,000 in to start the little basketball league for the boys. And we might be able to give a micro grant to a young man that's now starting a coffee roastery out of our business. Or we can put $40,000 into the backyard of the McCall.
And so tell us about this basketball coach you found. I think you helped him with, didn't he have he was relocating every 3 months somewhere.
Yeah, it was just, it's a normal scenario. Whenever you find what you would call more inner city hard need areas, usually the leaders that you need also they're indigenous to that place. But they also struggle. So, when you find some, like, oh, we should start a basketball league, I couldn't have done that. I got a little bit of skill, but not.
Well, you got to take your
not that much. Yeah.
So,
but you got to find people that they would connect with those boys the best. And this family, they had their own struggles, and so we had to actually renovate a house for them, help them. Eventually get a job at a local school and all sorts of stuff. But it's basically, that's why we say it's our church. Everything we do is church for us. And every person that comes in contact with what we do, they're a part of our work and they're part of our church. Sometimes people go, well, like, is this like a weird thing? Like, I go, well, no, there's like throughout history, what's weird, honestly, has just been this idea that you would only show up to a church service once a week and then you go about your life. That's actually weird. The history of the world, people were all in every day. So this was something that we get to enjoy here, but they knew Monday it's on and Tuesday it's on. And so sometimes I say we're more like a neo-Trappist work. There used to be all these cloistered orders that would live. Most of them would leave town, but the Benedictines out of the 6th century, we say we're a little bit like a Benedictine order. Their motto was ora et labora, which meant to pray is to do works, and the works that we do are how we intercede for the world. And so we say we're a little bit like that. And so we really do. We live an intentional life together. Everything is integrated, everything is shared. And the goal really is to just keep picking up the bread on the trail every day and just see what God's going to build out, not for our church, but for God's church and for the town. And if we prosper, then people should be glad that we showed up in this town, and they should be bummed out if we ever had to leave.
Didn't you try to sell the Post-Commons, or someone offered you money? And
yeah, we did.
Didn't the town throw a fit?
They did. It got to where there were so many needs within the youth in our city, and we don't make a lot extra, and so we were thinking, man, it would be great to just build a youth center for our town. And the only thing we had was the asset of our building, and so we literally last year we were thinking, okay, well, let's maybe sell this, and I'm very glad that we didn't. We told the Lord, like, we'll do whatever, but we feel like you're leading us more to the kids than providing a cup of coffee for the city. And it appears that God, in his great creativity, realizes that a cup of coffee is actually where it all starts. And so we're working hard. Part of our partnership potentially with Elmhurst is just to begin to keep building this ecosystem of the kingdom. But right now, I feel like the enterprise as the kind of the center that holds us all together is actually critical to what we're doing. So, yeah.
So we have a picture of
the ecosystem. Yep.
I think there it is.
Yes, we wrote a little book called Brave Cities to kind of help mostly church planters all around the world where they're thinking about going into a city. We actually say, consider, instead of just going in and starting church services, maybe consider going in and building a kingdom ecosystem. So sometimes we'll show them this, and you can see it's a little hard to read, but down below there you see the three primary aspects of a kingdom ecosystem would be homes of intention, right? They would be justice works, and they would be benevolent business or enterprise. And so, I hope someday, that's actually a lot right now. I've told the Lord, we don't need to do anything else.
This is good.
This is good.
It's good that you give him instructions.
Yeah,
Does he listen to your instructions?
No, he's kind of like my wife.
Yeah.
They don't listen. They talk to each other. But that's really, maybe if you gain something from our story, I want you to hear about the creativity of Jesus. Like, he's not just the person that did something amazing for us on a cross 2,000 years ago. He's still the smartest person in your world. And he's the most strategic, and he's the most creative. Like, anybody that would say and wake up in the morning and go, God, I know I got a busy day, but if you put bread on the trail, I'll try to respond. You will be surprised how creative God can be. We never thought that we would have any of this happening. This is just a 7-year story. So we're on year 8. We never thought any of this would happen. We never thought there'd be a place that kind of anchors the city socially. We never thought there'd be a refuge, a place where people can come and be on an 80-acre farm. We never saw a basketball league. So all of those were initiated by Jesus. We didn't try to think these things up. And so if you ever go, well, I'm not very creative either, you don't have to be. You just have to be willing to look for the bread and see what God does. And it doesn't have to be a business or anything that maybe looks a little bit cool at the end of the day. It literally can just be about one person that God wants you to do something creative for. But I don't know. I'm almost 60 now. I figure you're up there too, right?
You're young. Yeah.
Got maybe 20 good years left, right? But I go, this was 7 years. Now we've got grandkids all over the place. They all are a part of us. So this is a big family story, and I love the fact that God would take us out of a beautiful place in Denver, Colorado, and without us knowing anything, that he would build something like this. And I believe he does this everywhere.
Yeah. So one of the reasons we want to get involved as a missions team with Hugh, again, as Hugh just said earlier, missions can be in Africa, way across the ocean. It can be in Honduras. It can be in the city of Chicago. Guess what? It can also be right here. So Hugh, we live in the land of the rich and famous, the not so well-known rich and famous, but still lots of money, lots of resources. You can see pretty nice building here. So what's the word for us as a church? We want to be a church that if we were to leave our city, just like when you were going to close the Post Commons, people were like, there was an outcry. Yeah. You guys can't do this. Yeah. if we were to shut down, we want the city to go, you guys can't shut down because you're changing the city. You're changing this whole community. How do we get going on that?
Let's just go back to the church is you, right? It's me. Church is never a place. It's always the people of God. So if the city of Elmhurst were to ever go, I remember Taylor, he showed his picture, my partner, Taylor McCall, he did a very similar ecosystem in Birmingham, Alabama. He came up to join us in Alton about 4 years ago, and he was at a car wash, and the mayor of Birmingham was there, and they knew each other, and he was telling the mayor, hey, my family's going to move up to this place called Alton, Illinois. We're going to be gone for about a year. And the mayor goes, well, is your entire network going to leave? And at the time, Taylor said it was about 100 adults, 100 kind of very intentional Christians that were moving into the poorest areas of Birmingham. And he said, no, just my family. The network will remain here and keep doing what it's doing. And he said, well, good, because if your entire network were to leave, we would literally have to try to figure out how to raise taxes to cover what your people are doing in our city. And that, to me, when you think about that, was only 100 people, and a mayor of a large metropolis goes, we'd have to raise taxes. It tells you what this many people could do in an area like Elmhurst if we all, every morning, woke up and gave God our busy schedules and literally gave him permission, verbal. Biggest mistake, awesome thing you can do. But the biggest mistake is if you wake up every morning and you say, God, I will do whatever you want me to do today. You have permission to interrupt my schedule. And if every one of us did that, I think in due time, people would go, oh, you're with God? We got to keep you here. We got to have you. So that's why I think Jesus taught, like when he named us, he said, you guys will be like salt and you'll be like light. The two things that the world needed more than anything at that point was just something to preserve something and something to illuminate. So I don't know. I don't think we can do much, honestly. Yeah. We can do a little bit with buildings, but we do a lot more with people. And so, maybe for yourself, if you've always thought that the Jesus thing was more of a worship thing or more of a weekend thing, now maybe you can remind yourself, no, it's an everyday thing, and it's a follow him thing. And what Jesus does is very creative things, and he always tends to angle towards people that need him the most. And so if you want to get close to Jesus, you will be surprised. He will just take you into weird things. And at the end of the day, you'll go, that was a great story for our family. And that's our witness, right? It's the story of our family, what we did together. If you don't have a full family, it's the story of your life. And it's the letter that's read by everybody. And so I don't know. I think it's a great day for the church. I know we're struggling. Every place in the world that I go, every denomination in America is in rapid decline. But wherever I've seen this type of missionary activity, it always works. So I go, God's not freaking out about the state of the church right now. He just is trying to get us on the trail again. And our businesses are a key part of that. So maybe some of you, you've been more business and then you go, well, and I go to church on the side. Realize everything you're doing, your enterprise, the works that you do in your own neighborhood, they're critical to people understanding that God is real.
Yeah. So we're gonna have Hugh help us out. He's offered to help us out as a part of our relationship with him, help us get better at this, seeing the breadcrumbs and making a difference in our city. He's written a lot of books. I read the first one. I got involved with this guy years ago. I read his book, and we had a similar story of our church plant just kind of going haywire. And I called him on the phone. He actually answered the phone. I said, is this Hugh Halter? He goes, yeah, what do you think? I had a switchboard or something? So it was great. So, hey, can I pray for you?
Yes, that'd be great.
Before we go? All right. Would you hold out your hands maybe, and we'll pray for Hugh? Jesus, thank you for Hugh's willingness to say yes to you, Lord. Or maybe his wife's willingness to say yes. But Lord, thank you that you have led him to this place and that he has followed your voice and your breadcrumbs, Lord, and now you are building a kingdom system of just amazing kingdom things there in Alton, Illinois. Lord, we just pray for his family, for him, for protection, for vision, for resources. Lord, that you continue to bless the work he's doing there, and that you continue to write the story of your kingdom there in Alton. And yeah, thanks for having him here today with us, Lord. I pray your Holy Spirit would help us to apply this to our lives where we find ourselves today. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.